It's AOC, Papi, and I do not approve this message.
You've seen The Real Housewives of Orange County. Now experience the drama, the grudges, the epic clapbacks of The Real Housewives of the United States Congress. Prepare yourself for non-stop.
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Wall to wall.
I think your fake eyelashes are messing up.
No, ain't nothing.
Never ending.
Don't even play.
Baby girl, I don't...
Drama, drama, drama. From the women elected to represent the best of their home states in the House of Representatives. This season has a diverse cast, including the insufferable sassy white one.
You will never get an apology out of me.
The insufferable sassy Latino one.
Absolutely unacceptable. How dare you?
And the insufferable sassy black one.
Someone on this committee then starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad-built butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?
Oh, and the white guy.
What now?
Don't miss a second of the action. And, you guessed it, endless amounts of completely normal, totally not at all insanely crazy lady drama. So much lady drama.
Don't tell me to calm down, because y'all talk noise, and then you can't take control. Because if I come and talk shit about her...
The Real Housewives of the United States Congress. No, seriously, these are real congresswomen people actually voted for.
Oh, you gonna get it? And now, from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps,
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Nostradamus.
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. But we don't have that, so we have That Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. And tonight, she's ready to bring down the DOJ, Nicole Parker. She's concerned about his cognitive decline, Dr. Laura Purdy. Sketch comedy from the Holderness Family. Actors Harry Lennix and Kevin Sorbo. And Leanna Crawford cruise in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, where he was last seen Googling maximum punishment for breaking my mug, here's the...
I was what? You Googled for punishment to punish the person who broke your mug. No?
I was not seen Googling capital punishment.
Are you sure? Maximum. I said maximum. I didn't say capital.
You said maximum punishment. It sounded to me like you said capital punishment.
No, I would never say
And
that.
you cannot be trusted. I told you I have to use the black mug with the white logo for a number of weeks now. Next couple of weeks anyway, because the lovely bride accidentally shattered the white mug with the black logo. But I did not Google anything about punishment. What are you talking about?
I just assumed someone said they saw
capital punishment. I would never put my wife to death for breaking my white mug. What is wrong with you? Anyway, welcome to the weekend. Some people enjoy it in strange ways, differently than others, but I'm glad that you're with us. Kevin McCullough is my name, and I understand a little bit why we're all on edge tonight, because we have a Department of Justice in this country that is wackadoodle out of control. Now, Nicole Parker is going to join me in just a little bit, former FBI agent, and she left the Department of Justice because of all the injustice that they are doing. But tonight, friends, there is a story coming out of Texas that is repulsive. It makes me sick to my stomach because a concerned citizen there, Etienne Haim, I think is how you say his name, he reported that there was a medical clinic doing illegal trans procedures on children. They're not legal in the state of Texas. And he is the one who sits tonight arrested and charged with a crime in the matter. he reports and he gets arrested. Now, first of all, you have to have something definitively perversely wrong with you to think that you should be doing trans surgeries on children. This is why we have to have a degree of sanity come back into this government. Because Joe Biden, from the moment that he stepped into the office, was like, hey, let's do all the trans stuff to kids in the schools. That's a great idea. And in fact, if they don't play along, we'll make sure that we blackmail them and prevent them from having their lunch money and their breakfast money for the poor kids in their district. So we'll take away the meals if they don't let the kids do the trans stuff. Now, Texas has outlawed, like many states have, they've outlawed the trans surgeries for the kids, the sex change operations, the things that cut off body parts and try to attach new ones. They're permanent in nature, and they're not good for children. And normal people understand this. Normal people that understand common sense and understand developing health of children know that this is bad for kids. But somehow, in some perverse, lunatic way, this government, this president, this administration, and yes, the Department of Justice has been co-opted by them, now believes that it should go and arrest the people that report on the illegal surgeries being done. And here's what they claim he did. Here's why Etienne Haim, or Ethan Haim, or I don't know how exactly you pronounce his name. I'm wanting to do him justice because I don't want to diminish him at all. But he has been charged with 4 counts of the violation of the HIPAA standard. The HIPAA standard, where you're not allowed to tell people what medical procedures have been done without people's permission. 4 counts. They've charged him with felony violation of the HIPAA laws. When the surgery that he was making known to the authorities that was being done is illegal. So in the Department of Justice under Joe Biden's weird, perverse, sick kind of way of thinking, the person that is in more danger, is endangering society more, is the guy that raises his hand and says, hey, wait a minute, they're doing this to kids over there. They probably shouldn't be doing that. That's the bigger threat. Now, the Texas Attorney General, which is only good for state charges, has come to Etienne Haim's defense. But friends, there's no way that this man should be going to jail for telling the truth about a masochistic surgeon that is trying to cut off body parts on children. And this is why we have to vote. This is why we have to change this country. Because the left hates your kids. They don't respect their safety. They don't respect what's good for them. And they don't even respect the realization that when they make this decision, that it is permanent, life-altering. It's insane. And tonight, the Department of Justice, the big bad boys from the federal executive branch of law enforcement, the big bad dudes with Biden behind them, they're coming for the man who raised his hand and said, wait a second, this shouldn't be happening. This is against the law. It is against God's common sense. We should not be abusing these children this way. Because that's what it is. When a surgeon takes a body part off a child that prevents them permanently from being able to have children in the future, if it's not being done to save the child's life, it's abuse. End of discussion. Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, and all the other insane lunatics that are enforcing this stuff. Every one of you should be locked up. You're a menace to society. You're a danger to our children. We will not let you get away with it for one friggin' day longer. Come November 5th, you're out the door. You're done. No more endangering America's kids. We've had it. You don't get to get away with it anymore. It's insane what this president is doing. Kevin McCullough. By the way, we're liberating slaves tonight. We've got a match night underway. We'll tell you more about that. I'm a little bit wound up. Nicole Parker joins me next. A little bit later, Dr. Laura Purdy. And after that, some sketch comedy. It's all straight ahead on the best show of your weekend, That Kevin Show. Coming right back.
From New York, it's That Kevin Show.
See, I knew it.
Come on, Kev. What's a few classified documents between friends?
I told you all the time. I knew it. I knew he had some too.
Here he is. That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. And I'm always glad to welcome back my next guest. She's a former active duty agent for the FBI who walked away from that post just a little while ago because of her disillusionment with the corruption in the DOJ at large, and sometimes the dysfunction of that agency specifically. But it was especially painful because she joined the agency out of a desire to serve her country in the aftermath of 9/11. I'll never forget the inspiring story that Nicole Parker has lived in her desire to serve her country in the some of the troubling days that we have been in. And she joins us once again right now. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I always appreciate joining, Kevin.
Well, it's fun to have you. I wish it was under better circumstances, but there are a lot of angles to this recent verdict by Judge Marchand in Lower Manhattan that I have not explored, mostly because I just haven't had the right people on the show to talk about them with. But when we're talking about watching the justice system at work, when we're talking about the amount of resources used to put on this dog and pony show for the last 6 weeks, when you talk about the reinvention of the law that they had to come to even come up with a charge to try to figure out what they were doing, and then you talk about the undoing of legal precedent, like having unanimity amongst the jury. There are a lot of barriers that have been broken in this dog and pony show, this kangaroo circus court proceeding that we've just witnessed. Nicole, as someone who was in the field watching, how do you think this has impacted people's view and confidence in law enforcement, in justice, in the Justice Department, in the experience of justice in America?
You know, Kevin, those are all extremely important questions to be asking right now for Americans to truly reflect and to understand. And having been a former FBI special agent, I was working criminal matters. I was taking cases, I was taking evidence, I was receiving information from regular citizens about alleged crimes that occurred. I would take that information, I would do a full investigation, and I would determine, was a crime committed or was it not? And then I would take that information and evidence to the U.S. Attorney's Office, to an AUSA, present it, and then they would make a decision on whether or not they were going to prosecute the case. I can tell you there is a lot of work that needs to be done in this country. Things are we're in a very tough situation right now. And as we're seeing in many cities nationwide, violent crime is out the roof. Different crimes are just rampant. And to look at the amount of resources, time, and energy that was spent in the city of New York, of all places, for something that did not merit ever entering a courtroom, in my opinion, it's actually very insulting to the criminal justice system. And I think what it does is it destroys the trust of the American people in the legal system. We are a country founded on liberty and justice for all. And there's a key element here. You have the right to a fair trial. And what occurred in New York with former President Trump, in my opinion, based on my experience, was anything but fair. And to bring on a case that had been declined, already been declined by Department of Justice, had been declined even by the office that ended up charging it. It reeks of politicization. It reeks of, we are in fear of an individual who is now the top and forefront running candidate, and we will do anything that we can to stop them. And, people say, people that believe that that's just conspiracy. I can tell you it is not conspiracy. It is a fact. And to see the amount of energy that went into that, when you're seeing everything else falling apart in our country, it's just a lack of prioritization. And frankly, it was not fair. I looked at what occurred, and I've been to trials. I've taken cases to trials, and that is not how it works in the courtroom. The way that the jury instructions were delivered, the way that everything came about, it just, every step of the way, I thought, that's not normal. That's not how it's supposed to be. And it's almost like they had their own set of rules for this. And that's absolutely terrifying. And sadly, when you weaponize even the local justice system, it hurts local, state, and federal law enforcement. And it makes it difficult to have any sort of motivation, even as an FBI agent. I can tell you, I am in touch with many law enforcement officers, and they are absolutely horrified by what happened. And it makes them want to leave in droves because no one wants to be a part of that. Those that have integrity do not want any part of any sort of trial or case or sham trial of that nature. And we're seeing it over and over. I mean, this week is Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is in trial. I'm not hearing as much about Hunter Biden as I did about President Trump. I'm not really not hearing much at all.
And he committed an actual felony, like to have a gun, to possess a gun in the committing of a crime, or I'm sorry, in the while you are in fact a drug addict, to possess the gun, to use the gun, to own the gun, to purchase the gun. Those are all felonies that he should be on trial for. But what President Trump did in labeling legal expenses as legal expenses is somehow worth way more press time than a president's son who actually did commit felonies.
Well, and I think what's important to note here is what Hunter Biden was charged with was actually the minimum amount that they could have charged him with. He actually committed many more crimes, and there seemed to be very solid evidence based on whistleblowers that I seem to have trust in the IRS and all of the information that came forward. And he was not actually charged with those things. He was charged with the minimum amount that they had to charge him with to make it look like the justice system had not been politically weaponized. Whereas President Trump, they're digging up something that occurred how many years ago?
9 years.
And they're making things up. And again, it's just not the way that our country is supposed to function. And when you do these sorts of things, it destroys the credibility of the entire legal system. And Americans, that, again, this is not about President Trump. This is not about whether or not you love him, hate him, love Biden, hate Biden. It's about truth. And it's about fair and equal justice. And when you are given a certain amount of power at the DOJ, at, law enforcement levels, you cannot, use that power against your political enemies. Judges, prosecutors, they are given a tremendous amount of power, and they are entrusted to exercise that power fairly and justly. And again, President Trump really didn't stand a chance. He was in the jurisdiction of New York, a jurisdiction that doesn't favor him at all, according to the voting poll records. But you know what? It shouldn't matter. It should be about the facts and the evidence. I hate to say it now, and even as a former agent, it's all about who's your judge and what jurisdiction are you taking this case to trial. You know that you have a much better chance of getting a conviction in one jurisdiction versus another, and that's exactly what happened here. This was a judge that highly favored one side, the prosecution, which is not how it should be. And then you had a jury that President Trump didn't really stand a chance to have a fair trial. They refused to move the venue. And so it's one thing after another. The cards were stacked against him. Look, it happened, and now he has been convicted. But I don't know that Americans are really trusting this conviction, frankly. I don't think they put a lot of weight into it because I don't think that they trust that it was fair.
Well, all the polling thus far is showing that it's made zero, not 0.0, like 0.0 impact on people's view of the election, which I think, the Biden administration will just take that and just kind of lump it into the rest of the denial that they're living in. They really honestly believe that they're not in trouble. They don't think the poll numbers are reflecting accuracy. I almost wonder if they think that they can cheat and get away with rigging an election to try to, overcome all of this. But at the end of the day, the American people have spoken loudly. $200+ million raised since the verdict directly. And it's kind of disproving this idea that there's a limited amount of resources for politics. Americans want America to operate the way our founders designed it. And you're seeing people on every side of the political divide come to President Trump's defense because they know that this ran afoul of that.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. that Kevin McCullough.
And we're back from Times Square with Nicole Parker from the American First Policy Institute, doing a great job talking about law enforcement issues to the nation. And Nicole, we're talking about the lawfare that is being exercised in this country. And President Trump made a big deal about saying, you know, they're doing this to me because really they want to do this to you. I'm just standing in their way. And on some level, America's now seeing that with their eyes wide open. And no more so than some of my friends in the Hispanic communities texting me on Thursday night, and my bride, saying, you know, we fled Cuba because we saw courts doing this to people that we cared about. We fled Venezuela because we didn't want to be under the iron thumb of, you know, a dictator. And then they come to America and they see on their television the very same thing kind of happening before their eyes, and they think, this isn't the America that I wanted to escape to. This is what I was trying to run away from.
Absolutely. And I myself am a resident of Miami, and I hear it every single day. I had the exact same experience of a very close friend who's Venezuelan. He has waited and waited and waited to get his citizenship, and he finally got it. And then this happens, and he said, look, I left Venezuela to escape this. There was so much corruption. And I remember him. This was like 10 years ago, even while I was at the FBI, and he'd tell me about corrupt judges and all this. I'm like, oh, that would never happen here. Not like that. That is just so extreme. Kevin, we're seeing it happen on a regular basis now, and it's time for people to wake up.
Yeah.
This is not what America was founded on. Lady Justice no longer is blind. It seems that Lady Justice, in many instances, is dead. And that is not okay for this country. And frankly, a lot of people feel, what am I supposed to do about it? I don't agree with what I'm seeing going on, but what am I supposed to do to stop it? I'm some, you know, citizen, you know, sitting in Houston, Texas, and whatever. Everyone actually can do something about this, and that's going to be on November 5th. Whatever side of the spectrum you stand, you need to make your voice heard, and many people do not understand you have more power than you realize. If the election is fair and balanced, as it should be, go vote. And that's where you have a chance to appoint officials, judges, leaders, the president, you know, congressmen, congresswomen, senators. Your voice does matter. Get involved in your community. Do things. But yes, November 5th is a very big day, and if this is what they were trying to do to make sure President Trump did not get back into the White House, I think actually what they did is they launched him right back into the White House.
Well, the polling shows that. I mean,
this trial alone, I think people have had enough. It's just
he's now within shooting distance of even winning New York State. The poll that came out Friday after the Thursday verdict put him within 7, but if you take the margin of error, he's within 3. I don't think anybody thought that was going to be the case going into 2024. And, you know, if he picks the right vice presidential candidate, I'm kind of pulling for Lee Zeldin, put him on the campaign trail just in New York and try to take that big state off the board early on election night away from the other side. It'll be interesting to see where it all goes. But Nicole, the point about doing something about it and voting really matters, because if President Trump gets back in office, there needs to be a serious house cleaning at DOJ, and maybe that includes the top floor of the FBI as well. You got to get out these establishment ever-staters, and you've got to get them. You got to get people into those positions that are fighting for the Constitution, that are fighting for the American principle to be first. And you just got to get rid of all the chaff, and it seems like there's a lot of it laying around right now.
You know what, Kevin, it comes down to, you need people in leadership positions, especially at the FBI, especially at DOJ, especially judges, especially prosecutors. And let me just make it very simple. People that believe in the truth, integrity. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. No more of this, I'm trying to push forward my agenda, and so I'm going to do it this way. No, you take the facts, you follow the facts, you follow the evidence, and you do the right thing. And unfortunately, we are not seeing that on many levels within various forms in our government. And, you know, for instance, the DOJ and the FBI, those are sacred institutions that they have been politically weaponized. I saw it myself. I saw how they treat one side of those that stand on the one end of the political spectrum, you know, the more democratic, liberal, progressive side, versus, you know, they almost get a blind eye turned to things that they do. But if you're on the Republican, conservative, or other side of the political spectrum, or a Trump supporter, for example, you get the full force of the federal government on your back. And that's just not right. You know what? If you're not doing your job, it's over. Like,
you don't get to keep
you
your
need
job.
to step aside and start performing. The American people deserve this. We have too many problems in our country with the open border. We have no idea who is here. Terroristic threats are at an all-time high. We do not have time to waste on silly political weaponization cases, period.
You got that right. Nicole Parker, as always, thank you for your insights. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.
Kevin McCullough coming right back from Times Square in the greatest city on the planet. Don't change the dial.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin McCullough, very glad to have you with us, and I'm very excited to have my next guest back. She is one of the most favorite doctors in all of America, as her former moniker indicated, America's favorite doctor. Now she's the director of Swell MD. Please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Laura Purdy. Hello, lady.
Hi, everybody. Hey, thanks for having me back, Kevin. It's great to see you today.
And I'm not playing around with her name. I'm not being cute. It's actually Purdy, but she is awful purdy as well. So it's fun to have you back.
Thank you.
The Wall Street Journal has just published a pretty interesting piece where they talked to 45 lawmakers and administration officials. These are people that are in the executive branch if they're an administration official. And they talked to 45 of them, and they've asked each of them over the last 12 months, has your interaction with the president seemed to change? Has he seemed different in how in your meetings and so forth? And from Democrats and Republicans, kind of people on both sides, they're saying that there is some noticeable cognitive stuff going on. He talks sometimes very slowly and quietly in some meetings. Other meetings, he seems to be like peppier than normal and way too up. And then there's times where he will close his eyes for long extended periods, forgets where he's at, uses notes to make sure that he does the points that he's trying to. And other times he'll be like he was 20 years ago and kind of not even a hint of anything. So the words cognitive decline are bantied around on the news a lot now, but I was thinking it must be difficult if you're dealing with a parent or a boss or someone that's in your life and you begin to see some of these things. So I wanted to ask you, from a wellness perspective, Dr. Laura Purdy, when you hear those words, maybe in a family medical appointment or whatever, what should you begin to think about? What do you have to start doing from a family perspective to prepare for that?
Well, this is a hot topic and definitely something I know quite a bit about, taking care of, older veterans and retirees who stay in the military system. We see a lot of this, especially in the family members of the aging population. And I think the first thing to know is that it is a grieving process. So when someone in a family goes through cognitive decline, it impacts, some people say it marks the beginning of the end. Some people say that it marks the beginning of the grieving process of that person in your life. And another thing that's really important to remember is that this is a medical condition. It might be on a spectrum, and maybe it's a symptom. You can have cognitive decline in all kinds of diagnoses, or you can just have it from age, right? We all will eventually cognitively decline. So my advice to folks is always seek attention sooner rather than later from a qualified professional, as opposed to going online and looking for advice, because it is a real medical condition and there are real constraints. And second of all, acknowledge, as soon as you can acknowledge that you have a process to go through in this as well as the family member, the better, right? Because that's really important. And the third thing I will say is just to kind of shift the perspective a little bit, because when you are an adult who is undergoing cognitive decline, there's almost always, unless there's a very profound dementia, there's almost always an awareness of something's not right. I know I'm not myself. I don't know what to do about it. And that does pop up in those lucid intervals. And the problem is that in order to have that person start modifying their activities, like maybe working less or not working at all or not driving or not caring for themselves, cooking using stoves and things like that, is they do, right, wrong, or indifferent, they do retain their autonomous decision making for a pretty long time. It takes a lot to say to anybody, and I assume even the President of the United States, your medical condition now prevents you from being able to participate in your own life. So there's always a lot of opinions at the table anytime this happens to someone. And I don't think it's about right or wrong, but it is more about understanding it's a process, it's a condition. And to truly strip away rights and civil liberties of someone who has cognitive decline is a really big deal and shouldn't be taken lightly.
Well, it is something that I have a little bit of experience with myself. I had a grandmother that I deeply loved who went through a long arc of decline, and it was not super obvious at the time. And we're talking 30 years ago. So it was at a time when we didn't know as much as we do now in terms of some of the signs and some of the things to watch for. But Laura, sometimes things will come out in a very strange way. They may put clothes on in an awkward fashion, undergarments on top of outer garments, that type of thing. Or there may be conversations that they have that they just had with you that they don't remember having had with you. One of the things that the Wall Street Journal article said about the President Biden situation is that when Kevin McCarthy had been the Speaker of the House, that they had had 2 meetings on a specific topic. And when he came back to the third one, after having gone over the details in 2 previous meetings exhaustively, it was as though they'd never had them. And I can only imagine if it's jarring in the workplace that sometimes that stuff happening, particularly in the family relationship, can be especially hard.
It is. And there's even more than that. Aggression, impulsivity. Sometimes it can become dangerous because the adults can become violent. And I think it is a lot for anyone to wrap their mind around when you're talking about conversations that didn't exist. It's almost like that individual's kind of resorting back to, kind of more primitive toddler-like behavior with tantrums and outbursts and forgetfulness. It's a shock to anybody who goes through it. A lot of times, especially if they're still going like this and getting back to a baseline, there is still a part of them that realizes this is not right.
Yeah. And there's no way of measuring how long you have with them in that lucid state once the decline starts.
Correct. So, it's terrifying for people.
It's tough, but some early stuff that Dr. Laura Purdy is advising, get early input on a doctor that you trust or early on, and the earlier that you have the input, the better. Kevin McCullough with Dr. Laura Purdy, coming right back. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. Serving it up with a no-drink minimum. It's That Kevin
Ladies
Show.
and gentlemen, Leanna Crawford.
News update. Chaos erupted as the bomb squad was called to the offices of the New York Times. Employees reported seeing a white paper bag with an inflammatory red insignia on it sitting in a common area. One employee was quoted as saying, "Never think it'll happen to you until it does." Literally everyone in the building could have died. The NYPD confirmed the bag did contain dangerous material. It was a spicy chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A is infamous at the New York Times offices for being transphobic and bigoted. Former employees have reported facing strict scrutiny for having eaten it. and the threat was finally neutralized when the NYPD bravely removed the sandwich. Around lunchtime. This has been your actor-enhanced Woke News Update. And now, from Times Square, it's That Kevin Show.
Somewhere in the bowels of the city that never sleeps
Kevin McCullough, radio host with Salem Media,
is a man also not sleeping.
Syndicated radio talk show host Kevin McCullough.
And that guy would like a word with you.
Many of you know him from as Votes
Of course that Kevin show is going to be great. The only thing that could be greater, of course, would be that Donald show. But we don't have that, so we have that Kevin show.
Featuring the music of Dick Tunney and the Dream in Color Orchestra. Still to come, he played a president, and he was Hercules. Actors Harry Lennix and Kevin Sorbo. Sketch comedy from the Holderness Family. And Leanna Crawford, back in the spotlight. And now, from Times Square, the man who's been caught on tape repeatedly espousing a desire to mug his audience members. Here's
it just doesn't matter what Dave does. He makes it sound like I have some sort of criminal intent with everything. I'm not trying to mug my audience members like they're some sort of bad guy. I want to give them a mug. I want to give someone a mug like Jennifer Lowe from Mililani, Hawaii tonight. Jennifer, you are the winner. And Jennifer just signed up last week, friends. If you'd like to sign up for your chance to win one of the beautiful mugs, either the white with the black logo or the black with the white logo, just send an email to thatkevinshow@gmail.com. Include your address and preference of mug, and then be listening for your chance to win. thatkevinshow@gmail.com. thatkevinshow@gmail.com. We are drawing a new winner every weekend till the end of the year. For Assignment Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough. Judge Juan Merchan is drawing attention to a questionable Facebook post regarding his recent case, New York versus Trump. Now, he wanted jurors and both sides to know that the post did seem to indicate that someone connected to the trial may have spoken about its verdict before it was handed down. He thought this because the post said, quote, "My cousin is on the jury and they're going to find him guilty," released the day before, which would have been problematic enough. But somewhat excessively, Assignment Desk Weekend has learned that the poster went on to say, "My daddy promised if it came to his court, not only could he kangaroo the case to a guilty, but that I could make $93 million in fundraising for Democrats to defeat Donald Trump in election consulting work." Remarkably specific, we might add. The poster had a virtually empty profile on Facebook, but did refer to themselves as a trans-enhanced shiz talker. Only she didn't say shiz. Judge Merchan seemed completely baffled that such unusual activity could have stemmed from his courtroom, because his courtroom has a record of being exceptional, except for unanimous finding of fact, normal verdict procedure, conflicts of interest, gag orders on the accused, denying the right of expert testimony, letting the jury just make shiz up, and allowing his daughter to fundraise off the findings. Yeah, other than that, completely normal courtroom. In response to the verdict in the trial, the Trump camp is claiming a record fundraising season, even in blue states. This last weekend, Trump raised more than double the funds that had been hoped for at a $5 million targeted fundraiser. In all, $12 million was raised in the deep blue bastion of Silicon Valley. Overall, the campaign has raised close to $350 million in reaction to the trial, with $140 million of that coming in small donors that could give up to double that much again. In contrast, the Biden campaign last week found $140 million. Correction. $1.40 in Joe's pocket lint at the end of the week. A new study has shown promising results in attempting to alleviate Alzheimer's in dementia patients. The key seems to be the consumption of strawberries and pomegranates. Shortly after these results were announced, a woman using the name of Shrill Scheiden was seen throwing elbows in the Whole Foods produce section at the Whole Foods nearest the White House. Police are baffled at the violent shopper's getaway, especially the fact that she had a Secret Service protected escort. And finally, we end on a note of what we in the communications biz like to call irony. It turns out that the wastewater of the fracking process produces enormous amounts of something called lithium. Just in one drilling site in Pennsylvania, as much as 30 tons of lithium may have already been produced. Now, lithium is vital to the production of electric vehicles. The Biden administration has mandated 50% use of electric vehicles by 2030. But in natural reserves across the globe, geologists agree that there is not enough lithium on the planet to fulfill even half that mandate. The fracking wastewater, however, could produce enough lithium to supply up to 40% of the vehicles mandated. Simon Desk Weekend describes this as the president being stuck between a rock and a drill bit. For Simon Desk Weekend, I'm Kevin McCullough.
Do you ever look at the world and think that it's too much to bear? Just remember your Gen X. You used to have to crimp your hair. Yeah, you can get through anything. You've already come so far. You used to print out directions to navigate your car. This headband used to dig into your skull. And you found books using Dewey Decimal. Faced with uncertainty, like photos that you got developed at a pharmacy. Remember this one thing: when life feels like a mess, you can do it because you're Gen X. If you're feeling overwhelmed and overworked, you're not alone. You'll get through it. You used to make calls with a rotary freaking phone. You're running out of time and your patience running low. Remember your best friend's phone number had 3 9s and 2 zeros. If you think this is the worst that it can get, nah brah, you live through dial-up internet. If you think that the world is kinda lame, at least you don't have to go real hard to fix your video game. Up CDs, made it through the Oregon Trail without getting dysentery. You made it through VHS, being kind and rewinding. If you can make it through dialing 411, you can make it through anything. If you heard this song on the radio when you wanted it replayed, you'd have to wait for several hours or maybe several days. You'd be sitting by the radio and you'd hear it starting up. You'd press record and play at the same time and your cassette would get jammed up. And you'd have to fix it with some sort of utensil, like a knife or even a number 2 pencil. But somehow you'll record that banger. You know your antenna is just a bit coat hanger. You pay bills by mail. You learned how to MapQuest. You learned how to order from catalogs like Sharper, Image, and Best. You've been through all of this. It makes you better than the rest. You can do it
to That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.
Welcome back to Times Square. It's Kevin McCullough. It is That Kevin Show, and we're glad to have you with us. My next guest is no stranger to stage, film, TV screen. In fact, you've probably seen one or more of the things that my guest has been in, but he's got a brand new drama that's come out with Great American Pure Flix, and we're excited to talk to him about it today. Ladies and gentlemen, put it together and welcome Harry Lennix. Hello.
Great to be with you, Kevin, and you and your guests.
Well, we appreciate you making time for us. Now, you've done a boatload of things across the spectrum. I'd love to ask actors this. I was business partners with Stephen Baldwin for about 10 years, and every time I'd meet an actor that had done multiple disciplines, I would always ask him, what's your favorite? Film, TV, stage? What do you like most?
Well, I think these days, and I think the answer would have changed when I first started out, it was theater. It was 100% back in those days. And then it became film probably in the last 10 years, although, I've been doing TV. So yeah. I think really not much distinction anymore between TV and film. They're making less films, it seems, and more quality TV. So I think
what's interesting? I'm glad you used that word, because my bride and I have had this running debate frequently in recent months. But I, for the longest time, was just a huge fan of film, and I would try to see nearly everything that came out. And then when the streaming thing started to take off, at first it was like the streamers didn't really understand what the power of their advantage was. But they quickly came around to understanding that you could do, a book or a series of books in 8 to 10 pieces much more thoroughly and just as high quality as you could, in a 2-hour condensed version on the big screen. And television kind of overtook the film in terms of the really highest quality productions that I think that we end up, at least as a couple, enjoying the most these days. I mean, we still look forward to the big blockbuster and the next big whatever it is that's coming out. But there is something magical about what TV has become, is there not?
I quite agree. I think long-form storytelling at the high level is the way of the future. It certainly seems to be dominating the present. Even when they make those big tentpole movies that you're referring to, they're always sort of made with the idea of serializing them.
Yeah.
Right? All kinds of prequels and sequels now, and so it really too is long form storytelling. But yeah, to condense it in terms of its availability, I think is the ingenious innovation of streaming.
Well, they're going to do. I think they're going to redo the Harry Potter series and break it down from whatever it is, 7 films now to, a 15 or 20 part story and it just gives them more time. You get more time to delve into greater detail of the story.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you've been on so many things. You've done so many things. I remember seeing you on 24. I remember seeing you on ER. You were on a lot of shows I didn't watch, but your new one is with Great American Pure Flix, and it's called Destination Heaven. And I just spoke with Kevin Sorbo on That Kevin Show, 2 Kevins on the same Kevin show. That was a good day, and he's excited to be part of it. What attracted you to this particular new project?
Well, I fell in love really with the relatability of God in it, and the way that people have a relationship with God, that he, in answering prayer, he shows up more or less in person. And I love that as a concept. It's something that the idea of which I've enjoyed in other things, such as, Oh God, which is a film I love, how God shows up, for example, in Evan Almighty and Bruce Almighty.
Yeah.
I love those kinds of relationship stories. And that's
is the God that you play mean, angry, super smart, kind of dumb? What kind of God do you get to portray in Destination Heaven?
Well, I think if it's any bad thing, then we stay away from it. Thomas Aquinas thought that God was all good things. He was all good, totally good, could only be good.
Yep.
And so I try to show up in a way that is relatable, patient, wise.
Funny? Because I think God's funny. I think there's a big chunk of God that we just don't even understand sometimes. He just loves to play practical jokes on us.
I personally think he's always playing practical jokes, but this guy, which is one of the other reasons I loved it so much, is that he has a good time. He's having, you can have a easygoing, if you will, pleasant conversation with God, no matter what the subject of the nature is, or nature of the subject is, that you can talk to him and it doesn't have to be tortured in any way.
Yeah. Well, I am glad to see that you're taking the character both seriously and not too seriously, because I really do think that, and as an evangelical Christian myself, I do think that there is more winsomeness to God than, sadly, most of the time Christians portray. And if we have the opportunity to demonstrate that winsomeness, the humor, the funniness, yes, there is a righteousness, there's a justice side to God. They can't be separated from his holiness, and it can't be separated from the totality of who he is. But God is also a father who seeks to know and love his children in a specific way. And I'm curious, how does the script for Destination Heaven allow you to kind of pull all of this out of your character?
Well, whoever the people are, it was, I think, chiefly the work of Dean Batali and his team of writers. They clearly know Scripture, and they know both the Old Testament and the New Testament God. And the foundation of it really is the Old Testament God, this fatherly figure, of some bodily, real substance. Of course, I love the idea that Jacob wrestles with God, and that God shows up in person in the Old Testament rather a lot. And then he shows up in the person in the New Testament as Jesus, but with a relationship to that God in the Old Testament, who he refers to as father, as daddy, basically, in the Aramaic sense. And that kind of friendly, if you will, filial, paternal relationship is really the ideal one when we really get into a relationship with God. And so I take your point, Kevin, about that evangelical Christians or Christians writ large, are long on the law and order part of God, and sometimes, but that I think really to lean in, if we could lean in more to what we see in Destination Heaven, which is the paternal child and father idea.
Well, it's a series that's playing on Great American Pure Flix right now. And Harry, congratulations on this and a total body of work that is really commendable. But I appreciate you putting more faith and family-friendly material out there. My audience certainly longs for it. And we're glad that you could stop by tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's great to talk to you.
You got it. Kevin, coming right back from Times Square. Don't go away.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, That Kevin McCullough.
And we're back. Kevin McCullough from Times Square. And I think one of my claims to fame is I don't have a wife who ever comes to me in the middle of the night and says, please put the Hercules outfit back on so we can be like we were when we were teenagers. But my guest does. Kevin Sorbo, good to see you. And that is an enormous sword hanging behind you.
It is.
Is that what you chopped off the guy's head with?
This sword was given to me by my props department on the very last day after 7 years living in New Zealand, filming the most watched TV show in the world, Hercules, The Legendary Journeys. And my props department gave me this. By the next week, my entire crew from Hercules went on to work for the next 3 years on Lord of the Rings.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, they would. My crew, they won like Oscars. They won from the makeup department, wardrobe department, special effects guys, and they gave me that sword that says to Kevin Sorbo, 1993 through 1999, or 7 years down there. Says the journey may be over, but the legend lives on. So it's near and dear to my heart.
That is very cool. That is very cool. I didn't even know you were going to give me the story about the sword. I just thought I'd ask, and there we go. We were talking in the last segment about Destination Heaven, which is a brand new miniseries coming to Great American Pure Flix. You're in the first episode. May 17th is when it is out, and beyond there, you're able to see it. But you've got a very something can't be very unique. It's either unique or not. It's a unique approach to a launch of a new major motion picture that's coming to theaters. And right now, if people are listening to my radio show on a daily basis, they're being told about something called 1 Million Souls. Yep. And it's pointing people to the film that is coming out in July called The Firing Squad. What's the concept behind this kind of two-prong approach to the marketing, and what are the people behind the movie hoping to accomplish?
Well, Tim Shea is the director of it. We've been trying to work together for a very long time. He sent me this script, The Firing Squad. It's an amazing story. It's a true story about a guy that I play that ends up in prison after he killed a guy in Indonesia in his 20s. And during his decades in prison, he found God, he found Jesus, he became a pastor, and he saved many souls within that prison, not only from the inmates, but the guards as well before he was executed in 2015. They still use the Firing Squad in Indonesia. And what's interesting about this, not only if they go to firingsquadfilm.com, they'll find a trailer, but they'll also find testimonials from people coming out, because we've been screening the movie at different theaters around the country right now, and hear the stories. People love this movie. And the 1 Million Souls is that Tim Shea, the director, came up. He said, we want to save 1 million souls for this movie. And we need your help. Once again, we need people to support this movie. We need people to tell people about the movie. They've raised a lot of money for promotion so far, but obviously they want more. They're kind of following what the Angel Studios people do and reaching out to the masses out there, which helped make The Chosen famous, and which helped made Sound of Freedom a very big success, because Sound of Freedom was floating out there for 5.5 years before it even got released. So we're trying to follow that same model. And, the independent movies need that support from the public out there. And I know there's 80 million households out there that want the kind of product that not only this movie does, but also, of course, what they're doing at Great American Pure Flix. It's the same type of thing. It's the same type of format. We need people to turn on those TVs, and we need people to engage, and hopefully people will do that.
So for people of faith, the message is bring people that are somewhere on the journey but not across the finish line yet. Yep. And then at the end of the film, you appear one more time.
Yeah. I come on and basically do an altar call. And, we found it pretty successful with God's Not Dead when Willie Robertson do it. When he told everybody in that crowd, he says, everybody take your phone out right now and text God's Not Dead to everyone you know. So it's a great way to get more exposure to what these movies are about. So, we filmed a series of different little endings and saying, hey, guys, you know what? Here's your chance. I mean, because it's easy to get people of non-faith to go to a movie with you. If you're a person of faith, to ask a person, hey, let's go see a movie together. That's an easy thing to do. It's tougher to drag them into your church because they have this preset idea what church people are all about. So we're hoping that people...
It's a lower barrier to get past, for sure.
Yeah. So we're hoping people will bring their friends, and we hope that... I'm sure if you have a soul at all, it will touch your life, this movie, trust me.
Well, it sounds like it from the, and I've not seen one of the screening options, so I'm looking forward to seeing it. And Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it.
Yes,
he's one of my favorite guys in Hollywood. Like I love that guy. He's just
Jerry Maguire, right?
And he has his personal faith has deepened in recent years, from what I understand.
Well, he actually on the set, he recommitted himself to Christ on the set, which is pretty powerful. It's pretty amazing.
That is. All right. Kevin Sorbo, one of the best guys in Hollywood, primarily because he's not in Hollywood anymore.
That's right. I'm in Florida.
and his wife, the lovely Sam, who is one of the best educators out there, even though she's not into public education, but she will tell you, and she will talk to you until she's convinced you that if you don't have your kids being educated at home, you're doing the wrong thing. Anyway.
That's right.
That's right. All right, Kevin, great to see you again. Thanks for being here.
See you again.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough. From New York, that Kevin McCullough.
All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing what you can to change the world around you. You know that right now we are undergoing a very important season with liberating slaves from the Sudan, and we have had a wonderful week. Several of you stepped forward. I think an additional 8 slaves have been liberated. That brings us to around 74 going into the evening tonight. But as I mentioned in the first segment of tonight's show, we have something very special for you if you liberate a slave tonight, because every slave that is going to be matched for the first 4 will all be matched by me. In other words, if 4 of you will liberate one slave tonight at 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010. The McCullough family is going to match those 4 slaves so we could liberate an additional 8 just this evening. That would get us to somewhere in the neighborhood of 82 slaves to go before the end of the 82 slaves liberated before the end of the month. Our goal is to be at 104 slaves liberated by the end of June. So this is very important that we make some headway on that tonight. And tonight, if you are one of the first 4 that liberate a human being from slavery, the McCullough family is going to step up and match that gift slave for slave tonight. Please be generous and dig as deep as you can. If someone could do 4 slaves all at once, that would be wonderful. If we could have more than one family that would match our gift for tonight, that would also be an amazing thing. We have, 26 to go to get to the 100. We have 30 to go to get to the goal by the end of the month. And we have just, a little over 3 weeks to do that. So we can do this. And friends, I just need your help. Would you go to the phone, 888-342-1010, or just click the website, bringherhome.org, bringherhome.org. Now, what are we talking about? Well, the slaves that are enslaved in northern Sudan have been spoils of war. Women that were taken during attacks on South Sudan during the Sudanese Civil War. And when the world sought to bring peace to the rest of the universe in the Civil War, they did not take care of the slaves. They did not go liberate the slaves. So our friends at Christian Solidarity International have been faithfully executing this task. And just your efforts with us here at this show, over the last 10 years, we've liberated 4,500 human beings out of actual slavery. And it works very simple. We negotiate their freedom. Once we have them free, we bring them back to South Sudan where their home is, and we give them what's called the bag of hope. The bag of hope is everything they need to start their life over again. It's a year's worth of food, another year's worth of seed. It's tarps and blankets and things that will help protect them from the weather extremes that they will face. It gives them utensils to cook, clean, fish, and hunt with. And at the end of the day, it gives them a little she-goat that they can begin a micro-enterprise. It also gives them other things like clean drinking water and a Bible and a whole bunch of stuff. But friends, it is much, much more than just a bag of hope. But when you give it, that's the $250. It includes everything, by the way, including the goat. It's all included for the one-time gift of $250. Our family tries to liberate one slave every month, but tonight we are going to institute match night. And so if you go and give a gift right now to liberate a slave, it will be matched by myself, my bride, my kids. We're all in this together, and we want you to be in on it with us as well. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010, or go to bringherhome.org, bringherhome.org. And at the end of the day, it is touching a real person's life, someone who has been through brutal, brutal treatment from slave masters and heinous evil from the people that took her captive. But friends, that's not the end of the story. If we can get her free and get her back home, there's going to be a huge celebration from the church that's in her village that is ready to welcome her home. 888-342-1010, 888-342-1010.
It took me 15 days to walk the journey back to South Sudan. But that marked a passage for my life, from the horrors of slavery to a future filled with hope. Taken when I was just a child, snatched away literally from my mother's arms, my dreams of happiness were shattered as my living nightmare began. And suddenly, I found myself a slave. My slave master stripped me of my Christian faith and even my name, and he stamped on me instead a Muslim name and identity, and the beginning of a life of endless work. My worst day in slavery is still a vivid memory. My master sent me for a very difficult job of fetching water. The jugs are very heavy, and the distance is very far. When I was on my last trip to the well for that day, a group of Arab men approached the well and began calling out to me. And then they raped me. My master refused to accept my story and even blamed me for what ended up happening. And he did so even though he had raped me so many times before that. Because I have no idea of my birthday or even hometown. When I arrived to South Sudan, I was very blessed to be able to join a community of 150 other former slaves. And as I am now pregnant with a child that was conceived from my abusers, it's my hope to be a loving and caring mother. I hold no remorse against this child because I am so grateful. I wish to send thanks to God and thanks to those of you who cared about me and brought me safely home. And I would like to ask that you not stop until every captive is freed, fed, and healed. My name is Abuk Gorang, and because of your faithfulness, I was freed in November of 2023. And this is my story.
Serving it up with a no-drink minimum. It's That Kevin Show.
She's Leanna Crawford, and I Know a Place, her second of two spotlights tonight. Her newest one, Still Waters, the one we heard in hour number one. Kevin McCullough saying thank you so sincerely for making us your choice for this weekend. Kevin Sorbo, Harry Lennix, Laura Purdy, Nicole Parker, the Babylon Bee, the Holderness Family. Thank you all, and join us again next week for That Kevin Show.